Here's Archie's Travels, Chapter 37, entitled Snow. The film ended, and once again she felt her usual happy self. They opened the doors of the cinema and then stepped onto the busy streets, and they were surprised and delighted to see falling snow. It was romantic and magical, thought Dolly, as snow fell all around them like confetti, and she felt her heart begin to soar. James licked the snow off her lips and smiled, but he tried not to look too impressed, but he was. Archie jumped up and he was snapping at the falling snowflakes and barking loudly. He was enjoying himself, and his brown coat was peppered with white, as if he had been in a pillow fight. James and Dolly couldn't stop laughing as the puzzled commuters hurried, oblivious to the beauty of the snow and to the joys of being young. James was laughing so hard that he held on to Dolly so that he wouldn't fall over, and once again she felt that lovely glow. Even Archie looked happy and excited, and his eyes were glowing. The snow fell harder, and they headed for the nearest cafe to warm up. I can't believe he's stealing from people, said James as he sipped his hot chocolate. He's the lowest of the low, she said gravely. We have to do something, said Dolly. We should tell the police. That's right, said James. That will stop him in his tracks. And they breathed a sigh of relief. It was then that the bell of the cafe sounded, and in walked the bad man. Unfortunately, he was accompanied by a policeman, and he didn't look like he was going to be arrested. Do you know who that is? Said James in a whisper. That's the chief inspector, he said almost in awe. Dolly could see them laughing and joking, and her heart sank. Maybe he's a mason, she whispered to James. It wouldn't surprise me, hissed James as Archie whimpered. They could just pick out their conversations, and it was obvious that they were as thick as thieves. Look at the ring on his finger, said James, and Dolly could see that they had matching rings, big and bold. They're Masons, whispered James. They're comparing Masonic rings. It'll be the funny handshake next, said Dolly, and James spluttered over his tea, and this quickly caught his attention. Oh, he's looking round, whispered Dolly, and once again they felt his strong, powerful gaze. If he's best friends with the inspector, how are we ever going to report him? Said Dolly, with a touch of desperation in her voice. We'll think of something, said James, as he casually dunked a biscuit, and he surreptitiously handed one to Archie under the table, and Archie gratefully gobbled it up. Their conversation became louder and louder, and then they heard his name, Jack, being called. It was a relief to know who they were dealing with. He's a jack of all trades, said James with a wink. Careful, he's coming over, said Dolly, and he stood over them in all of his 6'4" frame. How's it going? He bellowed with an obviously fake smile. Great, said Dolly meekly as Archie curled round her legs for protection. Didn't I see you the other night? He said with pretend friendliness and a long hard look. I doubt it, she said. I was home all evening doing my homework, she lied, but she knew that it wasn't convincing. Of course you were, he said, and he adjusted his hat. Do you know who that is over there? He said grandly. That's the chief inspector, and we go way back, he said too loudly, and he bent down to stroke Archie. But he just growled and edged away. Archie could smell a bad egg from miles away. Jack laughed. I'm not frightened by that little thing, he said. Bob laughed. I'm not frightened by that little thing, he said, and he walked away with a smug look on his face. He's horrible, said Dolly as she stroked poor Archie. Extremely horrible. James agreed. I think we should get out of here, he said. I need some fresh air, he said with a quick look at Jack. I know what you mean, he added, and they walked out of the shop with their heads held high, but their hearts were low. What shall we do now? Lamented Dolly. I'm starving, said James. Do you want to meet my parents? Sure, said Dolly, puzzled by his disjointed conversation. And they walked through the rapidly whitening streets, and Archie licked the snowflakes, which fell from his already wet nose. When they got to the house, his mum was already cooking, and the lovely aroma of a shepherd's pie filled their nostrils, and Archie was barking and jumping up and down with excitement. It was his way of saying, Feed me. What a lovely day, said James' mum, and she bent down to stroke Archie, who was looking adorable. Dolly liked her straight away, as she reminded her of her own mum, who was a big woman with a big heart. James' dad came in and he was covered in grease. He'd been tinkering with James' motorbike, and his blue overalls were now spotted with black oil, as if they had been dabbed with a paintbrush. "Wash your filthy hands," Dolly's mum Beryl said, in a mock angry voice, and he did just that. She passed Archie a biscuit to nibble on, and he sat down contentedly and had a happy rest and a curious look round.